Mic on. Good. Okay. So, received a comment or two or three. I don't know. Most recent comments convinced me that I should share some of my writing. So, I want to explain a few things first because I do write and I like writing stories and I post them, but not on YouTube. So, start out with what do I write? I like writing fiction, more set in modern day, kind of like present day world, but with magics and stuff. Uh, where do I post it? That's going to be the first secret. There's no secret. That's where I post it. Yeah. For those of you who recognize that site, you might want to ask, why do I post it there? Because this site is more notorious for like visual art rather than literature. But I read stories on there quite often. The literature on there is usually full of, from what I read, it's usually full of grammatical errors and other stuff. But there are some stories I read on there that are quite good. I'm following ones particularly that whenever they release chapters, I read them pretty much right away because I'm always eager to know what happens next. But yeah, no, a long time ago, I discovered a different type of story that I hadn't seen a lot of on this site. And they're referred to with TFs and TGTFs, standing for transformation and transgender transformation, respectively. And I was driven to read more of this because I'm just kind of fascinated by the idea that you could just wake up one day as a completely different species or a different sex. But a lot of the times, it mix and match those things. So different species and a different sex. It's like, this whole thing, your world gets turned upside down. It's absolutely wild, and the POV tends to be imaginative because it's not something a lot of people experience anything close to. And I wonder, and I imagine, and I dream about how one's life might be changed by such an event, or how it might change oneself. It's a whole new worldview. People treat differently, and gosh, if you're a different species, we already have werewolves, right? Werewolves, vampires, monsters that can turn you into a monster. And, well, all those are interesting in their own right. I prefer a little bit more variety because vampires and werewolves and stuff of that variety, of that nature. I wouldn't say it gets old, but there's a lot of it out there, and it's pretty easy to find. So I like reading these things, and naturally, I had my own ideas. So I began to write. Stories that stem from those ideas. Thing to note though, my characters do tend to be somewhat inspired from other works that I have seen/read, but I will not be disclosing any of those inspirations if you recognize anything, that's you. There's a disclaimer, though, that I'd like to say. My first story, the one that has the most chapters up on my account on that site, it is in its first draft, and I have been working on and off on it for a few years. So when I started, I wasn't writing very big, like a chapter a page, and it wasn't all too detailed. It wasn't all too big. So the earlier chapters kind of evolved into much more in-depth later chapters, as I'm going right now. I have a couple chapters for a couple different stories in development at the moment. One of which I was working on for NaNoWriMo month. So yeah, no, I will definitely be changing / rebooting / overhauling those early chapters, if not the later ones as well, once I finish what I have planned for like the first book of that series. So keep that in mind when you're reading my stuff. Judge freely. But you will, as I have labeled some of those chapters mature content because there's, language. If you do plan on reading my stuff and going on that site, you will need an account in order to access all of the chapters. So, I covered a bit of this question already, but why do I write? I like to read a lot. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Wheel of Time series, but it consists of 14 books that are between like 800 and 1300 pages long each. And they are a delightful series, and I do love long, challenging books, but I have read several other series that I quite enjoy, and most, if not all of them, are fantasy. When I was younger, I read like Magic Treehouse or the Hardy Boys and stuff like that. Those were my fun books then. But as I grew older, I started getting into Wheel of Time, Eragon. I read through a lot of the Percy Jackson books. And now I'm awaiting the next book in the series of the Stormlight Archive, which comes out in like a week and a half. And I'm very excited for that. So yeah, no, I read a lot of fantasy, and I like the bigger books. Small books, while they can still be good and they can still be entertaining, well, I go through them too quickly. So I tend to be attracted by larger volumes. And maybe one day I'd like to write a few of my own big old fantasy books. But right now I'm sticking with modern magics and transformations. Maybe one day I'll be able to do all this full time. But I'm patient. A little too patient sometimes. So I write and release chapters on this site in hopes of quick feedback. Though I haven't gotten any comments from anybody I don't know that I haven't shared with personally. No, that's my account. Where you'll find all my works. And I'll even put a link in the description so that you can find it if you're interested. But yeah, no, I've gotten a comment or three asking about what I've been writing. And so I have elected to share. Despite the fact that I kind of wanted it to be anonymous at first. And I'm sure you'll see why. And you'll understand if you do choose to check it out. But that's my current situation. Every time I finish a chapter, I publish it online on my profile. And I want to see how it goes. One day I want to make all this into like a real published book. So it wouldn't hurt to have test readers, especially those that have no real relationship with me, are afraid to hurt my feelings about it. So by all means, judge with your harshest feedback and your best praise. I need more feedback. I need more reactions. I need to know more about what people think about what I write. Am I being too repetitive? Am I using enough diversity? What are some good ideas, maybe, or some theories as to where I'm going with any of it? I think that would be cool. So I am sharing this with you now. Hopefully it all goes well. I'm a little nervous, you know. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Randy Felsface. He's a little puppet comedian, and there's this one bit he does where it's Randy writes a novel. He's very famous for that one. And it's all about him procrastinating the telling of stuff in his book. And I don't know if there ever was a book, but it's really funny. And I can relate to the procrastination of writing, even though it's something I love to do. But I'll stop wasting your time and let you check it out if you can. Here in a minute, I'm going to be recording my Am I Satisfied for the Day, and this is going to come out like immediately before it. Because I promised a viewer in a comment that my next video would be telling people where I put my writing. So there it is. At your own risk. Take to it. I've got to edit this real quick. Send it out. Here goes nothing.